Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana hadha jam'an marhuma wa ja'al tafarruqana min ba'dihi tafarruqan ma'suma wa la taj'al fina wa la minna shaqiyan wa la mahruma bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this a blessed and beneficial event for all of us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward the Shaykh who has taken time out and come all this distance to educate us on these very important topics. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless him and his family and his time and his health and his wealth and his dunya and his akhirah. And we also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of you for taking the time out and being here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consider this as an act of seeking sacred knowledge for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will just mention a quick bio for Mufti Abrar. Most of us know him, he's been here before, but there are always new faces. So Mufti Abrar graduated from Benedictine University in 2006 with honors and a degree in information systems while simultaneously pursuing his Islamic studies full-time. He completed his Alim course in 2007, and thereafter he enrolled at Madrasa in Amiya, which is in Camperdown, South Africa, to specialize in the field of issuing fatawa, legal verdicts. In 2009, Mufti Abrar completed his training under the tutelage of the well-known Mufti Ibrahim Desai rahimahullah ta'ala. Mufti Ibrahim was a world-renowned jurist, faqih, and an expert in Islamic finance. Mufti Abrar is also fortunate to have received authorization to narrate from 44 books of hadith. He's also the founder of the American Fiqh Academy, and he's active in the field of research and issuing fatawa. And additionally, he is the head mufti at Darul Ifta in Chicago, where he trains ulama in the field of issuing fatawa. So it's a pleasure and an honor to host him. Inshallah, I'm going to pass on the microphone to him. Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We have a PowerPoint presentation, so if the brother is on this side, if you wish to move a little bit on this side to be able to view the presentation, you're welcome to do so. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah الذي هدى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على سيد الرسل وخاتم الأنبياء وعلى أهله وصحبه الذين اجتبى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. Dear brothers, respected sisters, I want to begin by first thanking the Masjid and Taqwa Seminary and my hosts and all of you for being here, and for my host for arranging this and inviting me. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts from everyone who's helped put this together and from everyone who's attending as well. This is a broader course on what we call, referring to here as Islamic wealth management, investing, savings, and raising capital. I'll mention the agenda or the topics that we're going to cover over the course of the time that we have allotted between today and tomorrow. Obviously, we're only going to be able to cover a portion of that within the session. But because this is a course, and it was just out of following the examples of some of our ulama, we begin any course in asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for dua, making dua to Allah and asking for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ease this for us and to not make it difficult, and for allow us to complete it with ease, and for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open up this knowledge for us. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who opens, He's the one who's al-fattah. So we make the dua of Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir wa tammim bil khair wa bika nasta'in ya fattah. I'll mention the dua and I'll ask that you repeat after me. And the brothers can do it audibly, the sisters will do it inaudibly. So Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir wa tammim bil khair wa bika nasta'in ya fattah. Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir wa tammim bil khair wa bika nasta'in ya fattah. Rabbi yassir wa la tu'assir وَالتَّمِّمْ بِالْخَيْرِ وَبِكَ نَسْتَعِينُ يَا فَتَّاحُ. Inshallah, over the course of these sessions, these are the topics we're going to cover. Within this session that we have until, I was told, 8:45, we're only going to cover, inshallah, the introduction, and then we'll get through some of the principles. Okay? The way that this session, or not just this session, but this course will work, is there's certain principles, right? And 10 principles we'll talk about. There are core principles that will apply in every discussion that we have, right? Not every principle in every discussion, but every discussion will have it involve some of these principles. So we're going to begin first by talking about those 10 principles. And some of them we may just give some examples, but generally we're not going to get deep into them. The idea is just note the principle. Okay? The application of those principles is not going to come as we get into some of the discussion on some of the investments and the financing models and such. So it's first, this is one of the methods of or a lot of fuqaha was, you have the usul, then you have the application. You have the principles, then you have the application. So we're going to first mention the principles, and then the application is going to come. Okay? Now, as we do the principles, there's a lot of questions that come to people's mind about does this mean X and does that mean Y? A lot of that is going to come in the session. Okay? So partially because of that, and partially because we don't have much time in this between Maghrib and Isha time anyway, we're likely not going to have a Q&A session at the end of this. But don't worry, we're doing the principles so that we can expand on them through application in the sessions tomorrow, inshallah. Begin first with some introduction, and I want to mention that this is a topic that is an important topic, but it's an infrequently discussed topic, right? And it's a very relevant topic for all segments of our society, right? Sometimes we think of Islamic wealth management, sometimes we think about this is for the people who are big time into stocks and investments, or these are for the people who've got a business and they're running a business, or for people who have a certain amount of portfolio of assets and such. Right? And this is not the case. This is for everyone. Okay? It's for anyone who's working in a normal corporate 9-to-5 job and you have a 401k option at work. How do you invest that? What are the principles of that? Okay? Or anyone who's just willing to invest in general. This is relevant for them. This is relevant for anybody who is running a business, anybody who wants to start a business, or anybody who's looking to infuse capital within an existing business. Okay? It's for anybody who owns or wants to acquire property, whether that property is personal property or whether that's business property. It is for those of our sisters who have dedicated their full time toward their families, and they're not working in a corporate environment, but they have a lot of assets still. They still have cash, they have their mahar, they have jewelry, they have money, but that money just is sitting stagnant in an account somewhere, and then you end up paying zakat on that on a yearly basis, and they're concerned about, well, my money is going down every year, right? Because money isn't meant to be left stagnant, right? This is relevant for them. Okay? It's relevant for a whole host of different pockets of the community. Okay? And this is a topic that is extremely important, because it's a topic that if we are not mindful and careful about it, it's something that can be a means of somebody raising their hands and then their dua is not being accepted. Okay? We know in the famous hadith the Prophet mentioned that ayyuhan nas, inna Allah tayyibun la yaqbalu illa tayyiba. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not accept that which is pure. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ أَمَرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ بِمَا أَمَرَ بِهِ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded the believers with the same thing that He has commanded the messengers. And what are those things? The Prophet mentioned that فَقَالْ يَا أَيُّهَا الرُّسُلُ كُلُوا مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَاعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا إِنِّي بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ عَلِيمٌ. That, O messengers, eat from that which is wholesome and pure, and do good deeds, for I know I'm all aware of what you do. وَقَالْ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُلُوا مِنْ طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. Same message that was given to the messengers, same thing to the believers, which is, O you who believe, eat from that which is pure and wholesome, from that which we have given you in sustenance. And the Rawi mentions that ثُمَّ ذَكَرَ, the Prophet mentioned that الرَّجُلْ يُطِيلُ السَّفَرَ أَشْأَثَ أَغْبَرَ يَمُدُّ يَدَيْهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ يا ربي ومطعمه حرام ومشربه حرام وملبسه حرام وغذي بالحرام فأنا يستجاب لذلك. Then the Prophet mentioned about a person, and this person such that his condition is such that he is disheveled and he's covered by dust, and he's a traveler, and his condition seems like he's somebody whose dua should be accepted, and his hands are stretched to the heavens, and he's saying, oh my Lord, but the Prophet mentioned that the source of his food is haram, and the source of his drinks are haram, and the source of his clothing is haram. فَأَنَّا يُسْتَجَابُ لِذَلِكَ. So how is this person's dua going to be accepted? And the ulama have mentioned two meanings within this. One is that the actual food and drink and clothing or such could be haram, or that the source and how these were acquired is haram, meaning the wealth that is used to acquire this is haram. So it is an important topic, as you mentioned. Now, there is a misconception that if we are to discuss money or express the desire to acquire financial prosperity, that this is something that's dunyawi, right? It's a very worldly thing, and this is bad, and this is looked down upon. And that's not true. Yes, wealth can be a fitna, right? Can be a trial for people. Allah mentions al-hakum al-takathur, right? That your desire for acquiring more and more wealth is cause you to be distracted from what your true purpose is, which is the akhirah. The wealth can be a fitna. Okay? But what that means is that we must be careful when we are dealing with wealth. Not that there's something wrong in wanting to have wealth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran also mentions, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةٌ وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. That verily your wealth and your children are fitna. Okay? What does that mean? That there's something wrong? No. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with children and they're fitna and something that you should avoid. No, the Prophet actually encouraged the opposite, right? تَزَوَّجُوا الْوَدُودَ الْوَلُودَ فَإِنِّي مُكَاثِرٌ بِكُمْ. The Prophet encouraged having more children, saying that I'm going to boast and be happy about the numbers of my ummah. So what does that mean? It means that these things can become a fitna for people if you're not mindful. Children can be a source of fitna. Your wealth can be a source of fitna. So be careful when dealing in these matters. Not that there are things that should be avoided. Okay? We see a good model, and I was mentioning this in the khutbah, that we see a good model in Surah Al-Jumu'ah when it comes to seeking financial prosperity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Jumu'ah that Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu idha nudiya lis-salati min yawm al-jumu'ati fas'au ila dhikrillahi wa dharul bay' dhalikum khairul lakum in kuntum ta'lamun. That, O you who believe, when the call for the Jumu'ah is given, then leave your financial transactions, leave your wealth and your business aside, and rush to the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is better for you. Okay? But then Allah in the next verse then says, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. But now when the prayer is finished, then go out into the land and seek from the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly, so that you can be successful. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows that when it's time and when it comes to your dini obligations, right, all your financials and all your businesses and everything takes a backseat. First thing is the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first thing is the dini obligations, your salah and your whatever your fara'id are. Thereafter, as long as those are taken care of, then go out and actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, go seek out that financial prosperity. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. You're seeking from the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're seeking from the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of this wealth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is created, everything that is within, all these resources that we have been created for us. It is the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we seek financial prosperity, we are not seeking anything except that which is the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the bounty. We're just seeking the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's nothing wrong in seeking the bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But again, that's as long as we're not violating any of the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The goal of this program is to understand how to manage and grow our wealth in a halal manner, okay? Within the context of investing and financing. Okay? That Allah subhanahu mentions that Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu taqullaha wa dharu ma baqiya min ar-riba in kuntum mu'minin fa in lam taf'alu fa'adhanu biharbin min Allahi wa rasulih wa in tubtum falakum ru'usu amwalikum la tudhlimuna wa la tudhlamun. We know the famous ayah Allah subhanahu mentions about leaving interest and leaving riba. If you are believers, right? If you're believers, you will leave this. And if you don't, right, the condition was, if you are believers, you must leave this. Now what does that mean if you don't leave it then? That's when Allah mentions, فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. Then no declaration of war from Allah and His Messenger. Okay? In our pursuit of wealth, in our pursuit of growing our portfolios and prospering financially, we must be careful that we don't invoke, Allah forbid, that we don't invoke a self-destructive war, right? A self-destructive war with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. Okay? The goal is, how do we do this in a proper manner? Okay? Now, with that, I want to cover I want to mention what is in scope, but I also want to mention what is out of scope, and I want to just mention some disclaimers, right? Inshallah, what we're going to talk about, if you remember on the list of the topics, right? We're going to discuss principles today, but we're going to get into investments. And we'll talk about bonds, stocks, derivatives, mutual funds, Sharia-compliant investments, 401k, we'll talk about these things. We'll talk about finance models, okay? Murabaha, musharaka, diminishing musharaka, ijara muntahiya bit-tamlik, mudaraba, ju'ala, all these terms, if you've never heard of them, don't worry, inshallah you'll know what they are. And some of these you may have heard because, most people's exposure to Islamic finance is limited to the home financing area, and you may hear of some of these terms as like diminishing musharaka and murabaha, and so you may have heard of some of these terms, but inshallah we'll talk about them and we'll talk about their broader application just outside of, beyond just home investments. Okay? We'll talk about personal financing, property financing, whether that's personal, whether that's business, whether that's, masjid financing, and we'll talk about these. And we'll talk about business financing. Okay? So how do you raise capital for a new business? How do you infuse capital into an existing business? How do you acquire investors? How do you do that while maintaining privacy of earnings and business secrets? So we'll talk about these things. What we're not going to talk about at the same time is, zakat matters. Okay, I'm not a personal wealth manager. I'm not going to offer you any investments on or advices on invest in this fund, don't invest in that fund. Or I'm not here to offer any of that. And at the same time, I want to make an important clarification that I'm here on the invitation of Taqwa Seminary, and I'm happy to come here. And they're covering for my expenses, but I'm not charging for the program. I don't charge for this. I'm not here on behalf of any Islamic financing organization. I don't represent any financing company. I don't have any stake or interest in any of these companies. I'm not implicitly trying to get you to finance your homes through this particular company or such. I have no personal interest in this area, except that I want to share whatever little I know, and that I hope that inshallah you benefit and I benefit, and that you make dua for me, and inshallah that'll be within my mizan of in my scale of good deeds in the hereafter, and inshallah that'll be a successful time spent for me then, inshallah. And finally, I want to mention that this is not a motivational talk. This is not a bayan. This is not a motivational talk. All right, this isn't about like stories and things of that nature. Right? This is an academic seminar. Probably be worthwhile to take notes, whether on your phone, whether on your book, whatever. But the slides aren't going to be shared afterwards. So whatever you want to capture, please make sure you capture them, inshallah. Okay. Now, with that clarified and out of the way, we can get right into some of the topics. Okay. The first one is on the principles. Okay. And I want to stress the importance of understanding principles. Okay. Let me give you an example. Okay. If you come and ask me, let's take fasting. Okay. You come and ask me, Sheikh, if I take a shot while fasting, does that break my fast? And I say, no, it doesn't. You say, what if a person has an IV? You say, no, that doesn't. What if a person gets cupping? I say, no, that doesn't, right? And you ask me questions after questions after question, and I keep giving you the answer. That's one approach. The other approach is, I just give you a principle, okay? And I tell you, look, here's what breaks your fast. Something must enter through, a valid orifice, which is, your mouth, your nose, the rear part. Something must enter through there, and it must reach a necessary cavity, which is either your throat, your stomach, or your intestines. That's the principle. Okay? Know that principle. If you know that principle, all these questions about like, does IV break my fast? Does a nicotine patch break my fast? Can I get blood drawn during my fast? Like all these like list of questions that you have, like dozens of questions that somebody may have, all of those questions get answered because you just go back to the principle and just say, does it fit this principle? Okay? So, if I give you a ruling on a specific matter, you ask me 50 questions, I give you 50 rulings. The other approach is, I just give you a principle, and you apply that principle. You can extract, a dozen rulings just from that principle. Okay? So, I really want to stress that it's important that when we're talking about these principles, you make a note and you understand these principles. Okay? I'm also going to mention that, again, these principles, we're going to talk about them first, and we'll do application, inshallah, most likely, and tomorrow, inshallah. We're also going to, my approach is also breadth first, depth later. Okay, breadth first, depth second. Okay, first understand what are all the different concepts, what are all the different areas that we need to be aware of first. Then we can go deeper into specific things. Okay? What happens is that, sometimes we start talking about a topic, and that topic's so interesting that we've got like so many questions just on that. We go really deep. Okay? But then we miss out like all these other topics that are not even being covered. So what we're going to do is we'll aim for breadth, and then like as time allows, then we can go in Q&A modes, and we can go into depth as well, inshallah. At the end of this presentation, not today but tomorrow, I'm also going to give you references that you can go back and read if you want more details. If you want to know like what are the dalail, the proofs, like what are the supporting arguments for where these rulings and the principles are extracted from. I'll give you references for beginners, for somebody who's intermediate, for somebody who's advanced. I'll give you, inshallah, references for those. But we're not going to, as we're going through these, we're not going to go into the proofs and the hadith behind like every single one of these, because then we're going to end up going deep. We're not going to have the ability to go cover breadth. First principle. Okay? The first principle is investments are asset-backed and risk-based. Okay? There is no aspect of guaranteed returns for simply advancing money. Okay? You cannot have a guaranteed return simply for advancing money. Okay? If you're going to invest, you're going to have to assume a risk. Okay? Hopefully it goes well. There is a potential that it may not. Okay? The classic riba violates this principle, right? The classic riba is I'm going to give you money and you're going to guarantee me a return on that money. It's not backed by any asset. There is no risk. I'm giving you money, you're going to return that same money, that principal, and you're going to guarantee me a percentage on top of that. Okay? That's classic riba, right? Not permissible. Okay? All the investments we'll see and the different models we'll see, they're all going to fall on this principle. It's going to be backed by an asset, okay? There's going to be some risk involved. No guaranteed profits. Okay? Rule number 2, or principle number 2. Okay? Money is not specified until you take possession. Okay? What does that mean? Let's say you are offering to sell me something, and I hold up a $20 bill. We conclude the transaction. Okay? Now when we conclude the transaction, I can give you the same $20 bill. I can give you a different $20 bill. I can give you 2 10s. I can give you 4 5s. I can give you anything that is $20. Okay? Because this note that I held up of this $20, this isn't specified. Okay? Only when I give you the money in your hand, then it becomes specified. Okay? And this principle people don't understand. Sometimes people don't realize how critical of a principle this is, okay? And how much this applies. Okay? Like for example, if somebody has 30%, somebody else, not us, like somebody else, let's say, has 30% of their income is haram. Okay? Somebody has a gas station, and the gas station sells liquor, sells gambling, whatever. Like somebody has some percent of their income is from haram sources. Okay? Now what happens? Okay? If they give me a gift, or if they give me cash on some event or something, do I have to assume that if they gave me $100, $30 is from haram and $70 from halal? No. Right? As long as the amount that they're giving me, they have that much from halal sources as well, I can just assume that what they're giving me is from their halal portion. Okay? There's nothing to specify that out of this $100 that they gave me, this 30 came from revenue item number 1, and this 70 came from revenue item number 2. Nothing to specify that. Okay? So I can assume that this $100 that they gave me came from their halal wealth. Okay? Your employer, right? Short of you working for a masjid or some Muslim organization, your employer, I don't care which industry they're in, right? If they're a normal corporate employer, guaranteed has some amount of haram wealth. Guaranteed. Okay? At minimum, the cash that they have, the cash that the company has, they're not going to put it in some checkings account that's not accruing any interest, right? That's almost be like a violation of fiduciary responsibility. Like how can you have money and not be making money on top of money? Right? From that capitalistic corporate, non-Muslim perspective, that's just silly. That's a violation of your fiduciary responsibility. How could you have done that? Okay? Your company could be an IT company, could be a hospital, could be whatever it may be. Okay? Is going to take its cash and put it in some, interest-generating account. It's going to have some percent, whatever percent that may be. Some percent is going to be from haram sources. Now, what are you going to do? From your paycheck, are you going to say, well, from my paycheck, X percent I'm going to give away in sadaqah because, the company has X percent of haram revenue? No, right? We say, look, as long as the company has this much in halal, which it most certainly does, we say that, no, there's nothing for me, there's nothing forcing me to assume that X percent is from haram, Y percent is from halal. Okay? I can assume that my paycheck in its entirety is halal. Okay? This is principle number 2. It applies in a lot of different places. Okay? Money is not specified until you take possession. Okay? Principle number 3. Okay? Currency exchange has additional restrictions than a general transaction. Okay? And what those additional restrictions are, some of them we'll talk about as well. Okay? But one of those examples for is that at least one party must take possession right away. Okay? So at least one party must take possession. Okay? And if deferred payment is stipulated, okay? If deferred payment is stipulated, then the currency exchange must be done on the spot rate, right? On the market rate today. Okay. If deferred payment is stipulated, you cannot just agree on whatever conversion rate that you want. It must be at the market rate. You think about it, why, right? Let's say, a person wants to give out money, but they want a guaranteed return on it, right? They want to give out a loan, but they want interest on it. We say, well, interest is haram, so you can't do that. So then you say, okay, how about I sell you dollars, so I'm going to give you dollars, and you sell me, in return, euros. For math simplicity, let's just say $1 is €1. Let's just assume that for a minute, okay? So we're going to say, well, here's the deal, okay? You need $1,000, right? You need a loan for $1,000. So you say, well, I can't give you an interest-bearing loan, so here's what we'll do. We'll just do a currency exchange. I'm going to give you $1,000 today, okay? And I'm going to sell you that $1,000 for 1,500 euros, although today's conversion rate is 1,000. But I'm going to sell you these dollars for euros, where I'm going to give you $1,000 and you're going to give me 1,500 euros, but that 1,500 euros can be deferred and you can give me that after 6 months. What do? We just created a loophole for riba. Well, I can't give you $1,000 and ask you to pay me back 1,500, so we're just going to do this quote-unquote transaction, this currency exchange sale. Right? So we can't do that. If you're going to deferred payment is going to be stipulated, then you have to have it at market rate to close that loophole. Okay? The other important thing within currency exchange is that actual transfer and possession of currencies must take place. Okay? This can't all just be on paper and say, well, I'm selling you this many dollars and you're selling me this many euros, and then tomorrow I sell you the euros and then you give me this other currency, or I sell that currency to somebody else, and at the end of the day we just say, well, what based on the fluctuations of all the currency rates, how much do I owe you at the end of the day and how much do you owe me at the end of the day, and we'll just kind of put it on a ledger somewhere. Okay? You can't do that. If you're exchanging currency, as we said, physical possession, actual transfer of the currencies must take place. Okay? We'll do applications. Some of you, maybe are starting to put things together and say, well, how does that work in Forex and such? Inshallah, we'll talk about applications, inshallah. Principle number 4. You cannot sell that which you do not own and possess. Okay? There is a sequence that needs to happen. Okay? You first acquire and own something. Okay? Then after you own, you get possession of it. Because the moment you own something, you don't have possession, right? You buy something online, right? You don't get possession right away. Okay? So you can buy something, right? I can buy something from you and you can say, okay, come pick it up tomorrow. Okay? You can buy something, but you don't have possession right away. You first have to own the item, then you have to get the possession of the item, and then you can resell it. Okay? It's pretty explicit in the hadith about بَيْعُ مَا لَمْ يَقْبِضْ بَيْعُ مَا لَا يَمْلِكْ, things that you don't own, things that you don't possess, right? You have to own, possess, and then you can resell. Okay? You can't sell something first and then say, well, I'm going to go acquire it later on. Okay? There's certain exceptional nuances, we're not going to get into those, but generally speaking, you can't just sell something because you found somebody who said, hey, I'm really interested in buying this. You say, oh, I'm going to sell it to you, and you make a transaction, you sell it, and then you say, well, I know a friend who's selling this for cheap, I'm going to go and acquire it afterward. Okay? You have to first own. If you now own something, but it never got shipped to you, you never got possession of it, you can't resell it yet. Yes, you own it, but you can't resell it yet. You first have to get possession of it, and then you resell it. And we talk about possession, either it's possession by you directly, or possession of somebody who's your agent, right? Somebody who's acting in your capacity, they can get possession, doesn't have to be you specifically, right? It's called constructive possession. Your agent gets possession of it. But you have to own, then possess, and then resell. Okay? That sequence has to apply. Okay? Principle number 5. Okay? Within a partnership, the partners can agree on a profit ratio, but the loss ratio is non-negotiable. Okay? You cannot negotiate on the loss ratio. Okay? So, for example, you take partner A and partner B here. Okay, partner A puts in 30,000, partner B puts in 20,000. Okay? Partner A has 60% of the capital investment. They own 60% of the business. Partner B owns 40% of the business. Okay? But let's say in this case, partner A, is not going to be doing much work for the business. Partner B is the one that's going to be doing all the work. Okay? In order to reflect the effort that partner B is putting, although they're 40% owner, you can agree and give them 50% of the profit, or 60 or 70 or whatever amount. Right? You can increase a partner's profit rate to reflect some work or some skill or something that they're bringing, something of value that they're bringing. Okay? But it must be a percent of the profit. It cannot be a fixed return. It can't be $500 a month, some dollar amount, for example. Every month, I'm going to get X dollars. You can't say that. Okay? Nor can you say that every month this person is going to get X percent of his investment. Okay? That somebody comes and selling you and pitching and saying, hey, why don't you invest in my business, and whatever you invest, I'm going to give you 4% of your investment back every month. Okay? One, that's impermissible, and two, that has red flags all over for Ponzi schemes. Okay? The Muslim community has been duped, unfortunately, multiple times within Ponzi schemes. Just maybe like a few months ago, before Ramadan, I think, somebody contacted me. It was a cryptocurrency investment business, and they explained the model to me, and it was something of this nature, and it had red flags all over. And I told the person, it was the owner of that investment company and like some of the prime investors, and they wanted to make it Sharia compliant and make sure it was Sharia compliant. And I told them straight out, I said, this doesn't make sense. There's something wrong here. Okay? Something doesn't sound right. I didn't tell it to them over the phone, but in my mind I was like, this is very shady. Okay? So I said, let me get back to you. Give me a week, give me a couple of weeks. I'm going to get back to you. But something here just doesn't click. Something just doesn't make sense to me. One of the, there was another scholar on the call as well. So a few days later, maybe like a week or so before I got back to them, he called me and said, that thing you're researching and you're looking into, yeah, no need. Like that got exposed for being a Ponzi scheme. And all these Muslim investors lost their money. Okay? Anytime you're being promised a guaranteed return on an investment, first know that violates the principle, that very first principle that we talked about, right? There must be risk-based. Where's the risk here? Okay, if you have a guaranteed return, you're just giving a loan and getting interest. Okay? So you can't have a fixed return, okay? And it can't be a percentage of the investment. It's a percentage of the profit if there is a profit. Maybe there's a large profit, maybe there's no profit. But if there's a profit, here's your percentage of the profit. Okay? And you can mutually agree to whatever that percentage you want it to be. With one caveat, which is that if one of the partners is contractually a silent partner, meaning they have no right to be involved in the operations of the business, then their profit ratio is capped at the amount of their investment. Meaning, in this case, if partner A is a silent partner, they can have 60% of the profits, or they can have anything below that, but they can't have more than 60%. Okay? So, except for that caveat, in general, profit rate can be mutually agreed upon. Loss ratio, though, is non-negotiable. In this case, regardless of what the profit ratio is, if the business suffers a loss, 60% of that loss will be for partner A, and 40% of that loss will be for partner B. Because that's the percentage, that's the share of your ownership in the business. Okay? That's non-negotiable. You cannot negotiate on that. Okay? No partner can shield themselves from loss. Okay? It's number 5. Okay? Let's do one more principle and then we'll have to pause. Okay? Principle number 6. Okay? The price cannot be contractually bound to change. Okay? At the time of the sale, the price must be fixed. Okay? You can offer different prices up front. Okay? You can offer different prices up front, but the transaction, the sale, is going to be on only one of those prices. Okay? So, for example, in the scenario above, you can't say sale price is $10,000 and you have to pay that within 6 months. If you pay earlier, it's going to be a less amount. If you pay in a longer duration, then it's going to be a higher amount. Okay? That isn't permissible. The price must be fixed up front. So what you can do is you can say, look, I'm going to sell you this laptop. But here are your two options. Option A is you pay me $1,000 upfront and you take the laptop. Option B is you buy the laptop for $1,200 and I'll give you 3 months to pay me back. Okay? When that transaction is done, when that person selects one of the options, the transaction is done on just one of those options, and it's known at the time of the transaction what it is, and it's fixed. So if you said, oh, I'm going to buy it for $1,200 and have 3 months to pay, that's fixed. If you pay earlier, it's still $1,200. If you pay, take more time, it's still the same price. Okay? Now, if somebody, unnecessarily delays payment that causes financial harm to the other party, you can pass off those financial harms because you are the one who caused it. But the other party can't benefit from late fees and such. Okay? We'll talk about that in a bit more detail. Okay? Or if I want to forgive a debt, I can forgive a debt, but that's completely voluntarily. Okay? It cannot be contractually stipulated that I say, you must forgive some amount of the money if I pay early. Okay? When the sale is done, it's done at a fixed price. Okay? In principle number 6, something that applies, and it also applies with the next principle. We'll just end with this example. You see this with car dealerships, okay? And maybe we'll just quickly cover principle number 7 and just combine the two together, okay? Principle number 7 is financial agreements are based on its intent. Okay? Not in its language. That cartoon, I think, is too small, but basically the cartoon, the caption reads, don't think of this as getting fired. Think of this as economic repositioning. Okay? Yeah, sounds nice, okay? But at the end of the day, that person still got fired, right? That person was still let go. However you phrase it, right? It's what's the meaning, what's the intent, what's actually taking place, not the wording, okay? Calling something riba doesn't make it riba. Calling something profit doesn't make it profit. You have to look at what's the actual transaction that's happening, okay? And it's going to be based off of how the contract works, not the language that's being used for it. Right? At certain times, official paperwork for certain type of transactions is going to have certain language because it's legally required and such. And just having certain language doesn't make it that type of a transaction, okay? Or doesn't invalidate a contract because it has those wordings on it. Okay? And I'll give you an example that combines principle number 6 and principle number 7 together, which is you can go to a car dealership, and many car dealerships do this, right? Where let's say if they're selling a car for $20,000, and they say, okay, $20,000 sale for the car, and it's financed at X% over 3 years. Okay? Now you say, well, I can't take that interest-bearing financing. So how about this? Okay? This is called buying down the interest. So you say, look, if let's say I'm going to, over the period of 3 years, I would have paid $22,000 total. Okay? Sell me the car for $22,000 upfront, or $22,000 with 0% financing. Okay? Now, what's the transaction here? Okay? You're buying the car for $22,000. The price is fixed, okay? And you have 3 years to pay it. Okay? That transaction is fine. On your invoice, it may say, $20,000, price of the car, and buying down interest for $2,000 or whatever. Just because they line item it that way doesn't make it such that you're actually involved in some interest-bearing transaction here. Okay? That language is going to make a difference because you say, what's the structure of this transaction? What is the meaning in this transaction? And the meaning in this transaction is, I bought something for a fixed price, and I have X period to pay it off. Okay? Now, you must be sure to not go beyond that. But what happens if I take the full 3 years to make that payment? I still pay $22,000. What happens if I pay off the next day? I still pay $22,000, right? That sale is a valid sale. Okay? So I had two options up front. One of them was, buy for $20,000 and X% interest, which I said, haram option, I can't take that. I took the other option. The sale was fixed on that transaction. The language isn't going to invalidate a valid transaction. Okay? So there's 3 more principles, but we're at time. So inshallah, we'll pick up from principle number 8 tomorrow. I invite all of you on behalf of Taqwa Seminary to inshallah come join us. We started off with the dua, and the dua was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy, Rabbi yassir, and Ya Allah do not make it easy, wala tu'assir. And then we said, وَالتَّمِّمْ بِالْخَيْرِ, and allow us to complete it in the best manner. So inshallah, come back tomorrow and we'll complete it, inshallah. Okay? All right, subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanaka wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
Jazakumullahu khairan, everybody. Inshallah, tomorrow we are going to have Q&A sessions as well as part of the program. But tonight, this is it, inshallah ta'ala. If you would like to come for tomorrow's programs, once again, it starts at 9 a.m. and will go until 2 p.m. It will be in person upstairs in the quad room and also live streamed online. Once you register, inshallah, you will receive an email with the details for the Zoom meeting. Okay, so you can attend the seminar over Zoom and pose your questions through Zoom as well, or you can come and attend in person, or you can attend part of it in person, part of it over Zoom. And since everything is going to be live streamed over Zoom, it will be automatically recorded. As you know, Zoom meetings can be easily recorded. So the recordings will then be shared with all the registrants in case you were not able to attend some of the live sessions. You can go back and listen to the recordings later, inshallah ta'ala. But you do have to register for tomorrow's program. So if you want to register, you can do that using the kiosks outside or on the website. And the website address is listed on the flyers that are outside. If you have any further questions, you can talk to me. You can talk to Brother Manzoor. You can talk to Brother Irfan. You can talk to Brother Ahmed, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair.